Greetings, Jelly Beans, and welcome back to another episode of Monday Madness, the Monday show where I talk about anything and everything. This one's going to be a quick one because I'm still recovering from the flu, as you can probably hear. Definitely, yep, that's been a fun one. So we're going to do a quick one, and today we're going to do an improvised storytelling once again, and this is based on a bunch of words that people from the Black Dog server have given me. Yes, the Black Dog is still a thing, it's slowly getting there. I've got most of the lines in right now. I'm starting to slowly edit the first few episodes, so my 2025 project is to bring you the first half of that. Super excited, looking forward to that. In the meantime, though, I've asked the wonderful people in that server if they can give me some words, and I have chucked them into this pot. I'm going to then pull out about 5 of them and make you an improvised story using the words that they've given me. Alright then, let's go. So, let's pick our first word. Alright, the first word is, there is 2 of them. I will take this one. Alright, the first word is, morose. Alright. 1 minute. Alright, sorry, I have recovered from the coughing fit I had. Alright, so, morose is the first word. I quite like this. It's very, well, it's a downtrodden story we're starting with. I like it as both a description of a character and possibly their name as well. Maybe it's their surname, their name is something morose. I can almost see it as like Inspector Morose or Dr. Morose, something like that. I will decide more of that as time goes on. So for now, it's just going to be morose. That is their attitude and it's also their name. So this person will be quite shy and reserved, quite keeps to themselves a lot of the time, maybe lives on the outskirts of town, maybe a complete hermit, that kind of thing. Someone who a lot of people know visually and have seen and heard of, but they don't know particularly well. They don't have any intimate relations, probably no family, things like this. Maybe they have lived in or around this town or village for a long time. Maybe people know their family as a family of hermits, or maybe they just moved in one day and people accepted them that they're this hermit person, or the alternative is maybe they've just been there for a really long time. Maybe this sort of ancient, old, wizened, sort of gnarled sorcerer. For sort of as far back as the currently living people, sort of living memory can remember, this person has been there. I'm going to go with it sort of an old guy. They call him Morose. Maybe that's his name or sounds like his name, that kind of thing. I think he definitely has some sort of magic, but definitely hermit, keeps himself to himself, lives in a sort of cave or something carved into the rock. The hat has disappeared. And this person, yeah, they act morose and their name is morose as well. All right, what happens next? Word number 2. Okay, let's have a little pick. I'm going to pick from the very bottom. You. What word are you? All right, so this word is charming. All right. I might go with the obvious here at this point, actually. My first thought was Prince Charming, and then my second thought was, no, that's far too obvious. But actually, I quite like it, especially because Dancing Through Life is literally playing right now. So I feel this is, yeah, I'm going to go with this vibe. Someone very akin to Fiyero, a Prince Charming type, possibly nicknamed Charming because of how they, resemble and act like Prince Charming, that kind of thing. This person swans into town, quite literally, probably rides in on the lake on the back of a giant swan, that kind of thing. Or maybe it's a boat that's made and carved to look like a giant swan, and they have this white and gold clothing with swan feathers embroidered down the back. They are at least giving the impression of being very wealthy, very shallow, all of these wonderful things that Fiyero sings about in the song. This very airheaded, walking on air, nothing bothers me, nothing troubles me. Why are you thinking seriously about anything? Trail of broken hearts behind him but does not even care. This person swans into town, literally on the back of this swan boat, and they embark and they get out onto the jetty and everyone is running over. Maybe they are not quite a celebrity, but maybe they are quite well known. Not necessarily a Prince Charming, but maybe someone of a friend of the royal family, that kind of thing. Someone royal adjacent, someone who is quite popular, quite well known, possibly known and recognised facially, someone who would have been in newspapers and on posters and things like that, someone who is relatively famous and who people see as fairly well off. I'm going to go with that as well. I'm getting very Princess and the Frog vibes right now. So this person rocks up and they are nicknamed Charming. Maybe that is their nickname that they have chosen, they've adopted. Maybe no one really knows their real name anymore. They're just called Charming. So we have the hermit, Morose, and we have Charming. And Charming is everything that the hermit has never been as far as anyone remembers. The hermit is this sort of older, grouchy, grizzled, long, grey-haired guy with a wizard's staff, and Charming is young and beautiful, probably with blonde, curled hair and this beautiful aesthetic, and just, yeah, the two immediately do not get along. Alright, what happens next? Alright, word number 3. What is happening? Oh, God, okay, I'm going to pick the one that dropped on the floor. Bear with me. Ta-da! Alright, this word is Ambrosia. And now all I can think of is The Sims. Okay, so Ambrosia. So we've got Morose, the hermit, and we've got Charming, who's just strolled into town. So a few weeks go by, and Charming is making a great impression on all of the locals, getting free room and board because he's being so charming and flirty with everyone, getting to stay at the inns and the taverns, maybe performing, maybe they have like a little lute or a instrument of some kind. Maybe they can sing and tell jokes. Maybe the hermit also knows how to play some music but never really does it, and they're sort of getting a bit of that jealous tension here as well. And Charming is just making a beautiful impression on everyone and getting everything handed to him. Has not had to part with any coins since he's arrived, and the hermit seems to be the only person who's noticing this is how you skate by, isn't it? This is your dancing through life moment. You skate through life by basically, to the hermit at least, taking advantage of everyone. Charming seems to take advantage of everyone because Charming is beautiful and charming, and so gets given everything. Oh, don't be silly, you can stay on my sofa. Oh, we don't have any spare rooms at the inn, but you can take my bed, or have a seat by the fire. No, I'll bring you some wine, you've had a long journey. Oh, you're just so clever and flirty. I'll bring you some food. All these kind of things. All these opportunities that seem to get handed to Charming simply because he is, well, charming. And Morose the hermit watches from afar. Maybe Charming notices, maybe Charming comments on this, mentions it to the other villagers, and they just sort of brush off the hermit as, oh, you know, that's crazy old Morose. I keep wanting to call him Maurice. Maurice, look at my crown, it's got a gecko on it. Oh, King Julian! And then Ambrosia happens. We have an Ambrosia moment. Now again, I'm trying not to lean too far into The Sims, but hey, I've leaned into most of the stereotypes of these so far. We've got Prince Charming, we've got the hermit. Maybe it is like Ambrosia dessert. Something happens. Yeah, something happens with Ambrosia dessert. What is it? Maybe there is a special celebration that happens, and it comes up in the first few weeks of Charming being in this village. And one of the things that they do at this village celebration is that they bake ambrosia pies or ambrosia cakes, whatever it is. And a bit like a potion that you can also make, which is called ambrosia. They meld the two of them together. So the puddings and desserts have bits of ambrosia potion in them. And what the ambrosia potion is supposed to do, apart from just tasting nice, is it's supposed to link people. Now, this has always been seen in this village as being a romantic thing. So you'll go to this festival, and if you haven't found your true love yet, then you might be eating a piece of the cake, and this feeling will overtake you, and you'll lock eyes with someone, and then you'll dance together, and you'll realize, oh, this is my person. Thank you, ambrosia. The ambrosia brought us together. And this is the opinion that everybody has. And so, of course, loads of the eligible members of the community are desperate to bring Charming to this event and think, wow, imagine if I could score Charming. Imagine if I could get married to Charming. None of them quite realizing that he is a Roma scallywag. This is probably not a good idea, but he's so charming and so pretty, everyone wants him. And so everybody has made their ambrosia desserts and their ambrosia wine and their ambrosia potions, and they've put them all together on this huge trestle table, and while they're doing all the other things, there's, you know, dancing, and there's stalls and party games and things like this, but there's also the ambrosia, and people are eating it, and they are offering Charming all day. He's been offered pieces of cake and slices of pie and drinks and all of this, and he has no idea what the ambrosia is supposed to mean. He slowly learns through the day and gets a bit weirded out and starts only eating a few bites when people offer him things, but he's very charming, so he does of course take the hospitality. He takes slices. He also doesn't really believe it, but you know, this is a small village and he's never been here before, and just because it's a tradition, that doesn't mean it's not true, and they have been brewing potions, and he doesn't know what ambrosia flowers do, so he decides to be wary. The ambrosia flowers they've got all decorating everything, they smell lovely and they're intoxicating, but yeah, he doesn't quite trust it either, so he only takes a few bites and a few sips here and there, and nothing happens. No one falls in love with him any further than they're intoxicated with him already, and he certainly doesn't have any moments where he falls in love with anyone else. And perhaps this is a small turning point for the hermit, because he realizes, oh, this is one of the few other people who hasn't bought into this. Oh, ambrosia is going to link us together. Maybe over the years they've watched people who they don't think are very good for each other get married and force their lives together because of this ambrosia and this desire that they have to find someone and be together. And it's the ambrosia, it's a spell, of course it's working, it's magic, it's true love. And maybe actually seeing someone like Charming dispute this and just, you know, brush it off as nothing. Maybe that actually gives the hermit a few just tiny breadcrumbs of respect for this Charming guy. But nonetheless, he still follows him around. And then Charming breaks off from the group and he goes and does something. And the only person who sees is the hermit, Morose. What does he do? Let's find out. So, we're going to we're going to pull another word out. Oh, this one's tiny and scrumpled at the bottom. All right, so this word is phoenix. All right, so phoenix. Okay, so he snuck off by himself. Charming is snuck off by himself. Does he turn into a phoenix? Does he have a phoenix? Does he talk to a phoenix? I don't want him to turn into a phoenix. That feels too on the nose, I guess. Maybe he speaks to maybe he speaks to a deity who comes to him in the form of a phoenix. Or at least he believes it's a deity. Yes, it turns out, in D&D terms, is essentially a warlock. He doesn't really have magic per se. What his magic is his charisma. And the only reason he has this, he believes, is because of a deal he has with who he believes to be a deity. A deity who takes the form of a quite large phoenix. Like if they stood up on the ground, they'd probably be about 3-4 feet tall. Quite a large, huge phoenix. And it's all golds and reds and oranges and plumage that comes spilling down. And they are beautiful and stunning. This huge sort of humanoidy phoenix bird that looks like a deity. Think sort of Egyptian deity, that kind of thing. And he sneaks off after he's had this big, huge day while everyone's celebrating and dancing, and he sneaks off to go and maybe do some prayers to his deity. Maybe it's a daily thing, maybe it's a weekly thing, something like that. And Charming sits down, possibly on a rooftop or somewhere just out of the way, somewhere he believes he is not being seen or watched, and he calls out to his deity, the phoenix. He calls out to the phoenix, and the phoenix appears in the air and flies down towards him and hovers maybe just in front. And maybe the phoenix doesn't really say anything, maybe it communicates in sort of emotions and auras and feelings. And the only person watching this conversation is the hermit, Morose. And he is flabbergasted. Maybe he's heard of gods before. Maybe they have some gods they, worship in this village, but he's never actually seen one. And he is torn. He doesn't know whether he should believe that this is a real deity. He doesn't know what to think. And he definitely doesn't trust the idea of a deity giving someone charisma, essentially changing their whole personality. He doesn't feel like this is safe. He feels like it's very dangerous, but he also feels like it's wrong and false in a way. And so when the deity of the phoenix and Charming have finished speaking to one another, and Charming has sort of bowed to the phoenix and it's disappeared and taken its leave, he approaches Charming and confronts him on the rooftop. Maybe he confronts him behind a big stack of chimney pots where no one can see them, and he says, what is this? This isn't right. This is something that's wrong. I don't trust this. And Charming brushes him off. Oh, you old man, you old fuddy-duddy, what would you know? And the hermit, Morose, says, well, actually, I know quite a lot. I'm fairly powerful. I have my own magic and I worked at it. Maybe he's a wizard. He had to study and learn for it. He learnt the tricks of his trade. He put in effort and time. And not only is he quite jealous of the idea that someone can just pray to a god and get gifted all these things, but also he doesn't believe or trust the fact that you could make a deal for something like that and not get spells. He says, well, can you do any magic? Do you even have a wand? Do you have any spells at all? Do you have anything that you can do? And this hits Charming in a way that wasn't intended. What the hermit meant was, can you do magic? Has your deity actually gifted you anything other than, made you pretty and hot to other people? That's all that they've done. What's in it for you? But what it came across as to Charming was, you can't do anything. You have no value. And this starts a huge argument, and they start yelling at each other on the roof. Charming, insulted and upset, deeply wounded, which upsets him as well, because for the first time he's actually taken something more than shallow deep. He's taken this very personally and has really started to think about, well, what can I do? And this panic of he actually has to be charming because he has no money anymore all starts spilling out, and he starts telling the hermit all these things. Do you think I like being this way? Yes, I bring joy, and sometimes that's all I want to bring. It's great. Everybody loves me, but everyone loves me. Do you have any idea how troubling that is? Do you have any idea what a burden that is? Look at you. You're burden free. No one cares. You can do whatever you want. You can come and go as you please. If you say something out of turn, no one cares. They expect it of you even. If I say even the tiniest thing wrong, do you know how hard it is to smooth that over and make people love me again? I have nothing. I'm relying on my wits. Do you know how scary that is? I'm not a young man anymore. I look like a young man, but I'm slowly aging. Eventually, this isn't going to work for me anymore. And then what? My god's just going to abandon me? I don't know. I never thought to ask. I was young, reckless, and stupid, and desperate for attention. And now I'm here. All right, what happens next? All right, this word is bandwidth. Wow, you guys did not make this easy on me, did you? All right, so bandwidth. We've gone Phoenix to bandwidth. Okay, so bandwidth, I'm going to use that as almost your emotional bandwidth. So the Prince Charming guy, Charming, he is at the end of his tether. He is coming to the end of his rope. He is spilling his guts, his heart and soul. He is telling all of these things to the hermit guy, Morose. And Morose is sitting there or standing there and listening and listening and leaning on his staff and realizing that he has misjudged this person and he has done all the things that, to be honest, Charming wants you to do. He wants you to assume that he's very successful, very shallow, and will be gone at a moment's notice and has no troubles, no cares, and just give me anything that you want, I'll go with it, everything is fine, my life is amazing. And he starts to realize that he too is a little unhappy with the way he's been living. His hermit existence, while he felt protected him from any of these fears or getting close to people who could hurt you, it also stops you from having anything good. And he has been protecting himself, which has also stopped him from ever experiencing very much. And on the opposite end of this, we have Charming, who his emotional bandwidth has been stretched and stretched and pulled so taut it's running dry, because he is always having to put on this facade of being the perfect person. And while his deity has gifted him with occasional gifts of the gab, and obviously he is considered very beautiful, everyone likes him, boys, girls, everyone loves him, parents are always happy to meet him, he can never really have a bad hair day, but this also means that he always has the attention he so desperately wanted when he made the deal with the deity so long ago. He asked for attention and to be this charismatic person, and that's what he got, and it's turned into a burden for him. He now has to maintain this, otherwise he has nothing. He'll end up on the street, in the gutter. He has no money. He can't always hold down jobs because he starts to get mobbed. It's like everyone becomes obsessed. He can't settle anywhere because people won't leave him alone. He can never have time to himself. He couldn't buy a house. Sure, he might get given a house to live in, but then the person who actually owns the house will continuously come to his door. He says this, it's happened before. He got given a house, he was trying to save up for it, but every time he got a job and tried to settle, the bosses would get obsessed with him, and some people would turn on him, getting upset that he was taking attention away. He split up marriages, he split up relationships, he split up families without even trying or meaning to. He breaks everything around him because everyone turns their attention on him. And it hurts. Alright, so that's the emotional bandwidth. What's next? I enjoy the fact that Beetlejuice is now playing in the background of this. Alright, next word is honey. Okay, I know who gave me that word too. My reaction was, sweetie darling. Alright, honey, 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 honey. Maybe that's how he describes it. Maybe Charming describes himself as being like honey, and he uses the old phrase of, oh, you attract more flies with honey than with salt or vinegar or whatever it is. And he says, but that's the problem. I am honey, it's sticky and it's sweet and I can't get it off me. I am a sickly drug that draws people to me because of a wish I was foolish enough to make when I was so young. I still pray to my deity, but what I was doing, what you didn't know when I was talking to my deity, is I was praying for them to take it away, asking if I had suffered enough to have this stupid request taken away from me, but every time they say no. And I don't know what to do to fix this. I have turned into the honey and it's stuck all over me and I am drowning in it and I don't know what to do. And he says, you know the worst bit? The worst bit is I can't even die. And the hermit looks at him like, you have immortality? What did your deity give you? And he says, no, I can't die because any time I've tried to walk into a lake, to jump off a cliff, to find a sword and stab myself with it, because you know what? Sometimes it just has got too much. Somebody finds me because no one leaves me alone. And he goes on a huge, long, and heartbreaking monologue where he talks and cries about how sometimes I have just tried to end it so hard, but there's always someone there. There's always someone who loves me so much, and I sound so foolish for hating this. Why can't they just stop loving me? People kill for this kind of thing. People die for this kind of thing, but not like this. I can't even attempt to end things because there's a crowd of people there to stop me, to catch me, to wade into the river and get me. It hurts. And he says it again, it hurts. I am honey, I am sickness, and I am so tired of it. And then at this point, the hermit Morose guy will say to him, well, if it helps, none of that works on me. I have never seen you as anything but a complete jackass. And then they just laugh for a good 5 minutes. And it's a very genuine laugh. For both of them, it's very different as well. So for the hermit, it's a real laugh. He can laugh and he has jokes for himself, and he sometimes laughs if people think that he's insulted them and he's caused a bit of chaos or just said something he finds amusing. But really sharing a laugh with someone, he hasn't done this for years, maybe hundreds of years. And for Charming, it's a real laugh because he isn't worried about how he looks. Am I laughing too long? Am I laughing at the right joke? Am I making sure that people feel good? What am I doing with this laugh? How performative is it? No, it's just a real laugh. He just lets go, and it sounds different as well. Even his voice changes when he's having this conversation. It's no longer put on that Fiero type, yes, I'm charming voice. It's now just his own. And they just both visibly relax. All right, what happens next? We've only got a few left. I might just use all of them. Why not? We're going to go with the one that refused to get out of the pot. So this one is library. All right, how can we use a library in this? Okay. Maybe that's where they go. Maybe they go to the library in town while everyone else is having this big celebration, and it's sort of the last place that anyone would look for anybody. Not because people don't use the library, they love it, of course they do, but because this is a celebration. No one will be, one, inside, and two, no one would be, studying today. And so maybe it's the last place that anyone would look. So they go there. They go there together and they go to this library. And maybe the hermit starts to ask Charming, well, what were you interested in before all of this? You must have hobbies and skills. And Charming starts to talk about how he's never even been able to get them, because as soon as he starts trying a hobby or skill, he gets overrun with people trying to show him things and teach him how to do stuff. And he never actually gets to learn anything because it's such a mob of people. And he never has time to himself to really enjoy or start anything. And the hermit says, well, by yourself now. What do you want to do? What are you interested in? And they start to look things up. Maybe Charming doesn't really know anymore. It's been so long since he's had, time to actually be himself. He never really fully developed as a person. So he starts looking through the library because they're looking for a hobby for him, and they pull out different books on different topics, and he sort of has an interest in everything. He says, I just one of the good things about this was that I traveled so much and I saw lots of things. I never got to quite enjoy them though, because I was always, mobbed by people and having to watch what I was saying and doing and being this performative person. But I do enjoy learning about other places and things and history. And the hermit says, well, I have been alive for, I don't know, let's say 500 years or so. He says, well, I've lived through a lot of history. What do you want to know? And it turns out the hermit didn't necessarily live in this one place all the time, and sometimes does still go travelling, and found it difficult sometimes because while you can sort of slip in unnoticed, which is a concept that is completely foreign to Charming, it does mean that he doesn't get to be as involved with everything. He isn't as welcomed and encouraged. And they sort of pass that between the two of them and maybe sort of look for a middle ground where you could enjoy learning new things and meeting new people, but also, you could travel without being flamboyant about it on the back of a bloody swan, that kind of thing. And they both discover a great love of this history and learning, and maybe they both sort of tentatively talk about leaving the village, maybe together to go and see something. All right, how does this story start to end? All right, there are 3 words left, so you were determined to be stuck to my finger, so we're going to use this one. All right, this one is honey again. Why did I put honey twice? All right, well, we can use it again. All right, honey, honey, honey. Maybe one of the things they look up, and maybe it starts as a joke, maybe one of the things they look up in the library is how to make honey, and they discover a place not too far away, maybe, 50, 60 miles away, something like this, where they have sort of magical or enchanted bees, and their honey is said to be some of the best in the world. And maybe the prince says that it might be quite fun to taste some honey rather than just being the honey for a while. And perhaps the hermit says that he used to know someone who lived in that town, and he thinks he can vaguely remember. I mean, they're probably long dead now, but he can remember where they used to live and how to get there. They could go. And then they just sort of sit there in a moment of silence, and then they just both go, screw it. Yeah, all right, let's go. And Charming doesn't really have many possessions. He doesn't have a lot of money. He wears the fancy clothes, and he's already wearing his best clothes, and he just thinks, sure, yeah, let's go. And so they pick up right then and there. The hermit doesn't have many things either. He carries most of his important possessions on his person as sort of a wizardy sorcerer way, and they just pick up and leave. and the village never knows what happened. They have rumors that the hermit killed Charming. There are rumors that they both had a big fight and Charming tried to save them from something the hermit was doing and ended up dying in the process. And some people claim that neither of them existed at all. They become a source of town gossip and rumor and stories, and then over the years, the stories just sort of slowly die off, and no one even remembers they used to have a hermit anymore. And people still whisper about Charming, but no one remembers him either. But the two of them just disappear off. As the evening is falling later and later, as the clock is beginning to strike midnight, Charming and the hermit start heading off down the road towards this town where these bees are to go and sample some of this really amazing honey. All right, the next word is... 2 words left. All right, if this is honey again, I swear. Ass. Oh, I forgot to put that one in. All right, whose bloody idea was that? Okay. We could go 2 ways. We could go they get a donkey. We could go something to do with his ass. Maybe both. All right, so at some point as they are traveling, they get to this town that has this honey. They sample the honey. It's amazing. Maybe Charming manages to sort of talk himself into a job as their spokesperson for a while, and he makes honey puns and jokes, and he's, drawn in sketches and pictures for adverts, and he's put on the bottles of some of this honey and the jars and things like this. And he actually gets paid. Maybe it's one of the first times he's actually been paid for a job rather than being just given stuff. And he slowly feels like he's being treated as more of a person who has a skill that he can do. And he knows he has some of the charismatic skills. He's learned how to speak to people. And he uses that to speak to them about honey. Maybe their honey needs, what they want from honey, that kind of thing. And it's a really sweet moment where he actually gets morose involved as well. So the hermit is there. Maybe he's really good with some of the concoctions. He's a wizard, so maybe he can help them to make the honey brewing process, if that's what it's called, a little bit easier or better. Maybe he can make it sweeter or a little bit sourer. Maybe they add lemon to some honey and they start making lemony curd, that kind of thing. And they can use both of their small skill sets in this way. And they start to diverge off, and maybe they are given some of this honey to go and sell elsewhere. Yes, maybe that's how their story starts to carry on. They do such a good job of helping them to improve the recipe and the sort of how to brew this honey. And he does such a good job of, marketing it, but not in a shammy way, in a, no, I love this product, I've tried it, please let me try and help you. Maybe it's a small business. Oh my goodness, it's just a tiny little business that they've heard of, that this honey's so amazing, and they get there and they think it's so great, they want to help. And so they get commissioned and given a bunch of this honey, and they're told, all right, cool, you're our spokesperson, up the face of the the model on the packets and everything. Go and sell some of this honey, and then come back, and we'll give you some of the profits. And it's a mark of trust, from these people that they've started to help. That over a few weeks of working together, improving the recipe and being put on all these pictures and advertising it to people, they say, yeah, okay, go further afield, take some of our honey. Here is an ass, here's a donkey, here's a carriage, here's a cart, here's a bunch of the honey. Go sell it, and yeah, we're trusting you to bring us back the money, and we'll divvy it up and give you some of the proceeds. All right. And then what? The final word in the pot. What is the... I'm trying to remember what it was, and I do not remember. Oh, God. Pronunciation. How do we end with a word like pronunciation? Okay. Maybe pronunciation. So they go off together, and they are like best friends, having a great time. It's just this old guy who's learned how to laugh again and share his life, and this charming guy who has learned how to be less shallow and let people in a little bit further and use the charisma and the attention that he asked for, that this deity's blessed him or cursed him with, and use it to an advantage that isn't taking advantage of people. It is, just improving things. And maybe slowly over the years, he and the deity come to an agreement, and the deity says, yeah, you've learned, and that's why it feels better. You're no longer just getting mobbed with people. You're actually able to control this and manage it now, and it just slowly calms down a little bit. But pronunciation. So to finish this story, after a long time, they both talk to each other about, so what is your actual name then? Maybe they've just been calling each other Morose and Charming, and everyone calls Charming Charming. And it starts with Charming. Maybe Charming, had a real name once upon a time and hated it. Maybe Charming goes back to his old name, a la Eugene from Tangled. Or maybe he picks a new one. And you know, it's that pronunciation of, I don't want to be called Charming anymore. This is the name I want. And I will let you guys decide if you want to give him a name in the comments, because I think I'm going to leave that one open. But Morose, I think his real name, the pronunciation thing, will get told to Charming after a little while. And he'll be like, so, you know, what is your real name? Or maybe they're just having a good moment and Morose decides to tell him. And maybe Morose's real name was actually something like Morris Sloan or something. And then it got smushed together into Morose, and his attitude meant everyone called him Morose. So he's actually called Mordain Rosen, I think. Yeah, not I don't want it to be Morris. So Mordain Rosen, that's his name. And that's where we all end the story. They both learn each other's real names, and maybe Charming gets himself a new one, and they have set up this sort of traveling shop, and they're going to go traveling around the world selling this honey, and yeah, making friends, talking to people, being out of their comfort zones, being out of their shells in very, very different ways. And they're going to learn about history and talk to people and just discover stuff. All right, that feels like a happy ending to leave you guys on. If you've got any ideas for the name of Charming, let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, let me know what you thought of this crazy story. I'm going to go and edit this video and have another coughing fit while listening to the soundtrack for Wicked. I love you all very, very much. On Friday, as long as my voice holds out, I'll be bringing you the next part of the OC story. And then next week, we'll be back with another Monday Madness, which will not be an improvised story. We will do something different next Monday. All right, I love you all. Bye-bye. Don't start trying to sing Dancing Through Life. Does not work. Dancing Through Life. No, I'm giving up now.